Okay, let's go ahead, call the meeting to order. Steve, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stacia, roll call vote, please.
Steve Jarvis,
Here.
Bill Miner,
Here on the phone.
Jim Peterson,
Yep.
John Johnson.
We have a quorum. Before we go into any of the agenda, are there any conflicts of interest that need to be discussed? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Approval of 6/8/2020 agenda, approval of 5/26/2020 meeting minutes, approval of claims, set hearing for June 22nd, 2020 for a retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license, 158 Museum Drive, Mangiamo Pizzeria, LLC. Set hearing for June 22nd, 2020 retail wine and cider license, 158 Museum Drive, Mangiamo Pizzeria, LLC. And set hearing for June 22nd, 2020 retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license for 237 Elm Street, Taqueria Las Camelinas. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve, Alderman Johnson, second, Alderman Jarvis. Any discussions? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Jim Peterson,
Yeah.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
John Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carried. Do we have anyone from the Pennington County Sheriff's Office on the line? Okay, I was gonna go ahead and move them up, however, they're not here yet. So let's go ahead and go to public comment. Members of the public may speak on any matter not on the agenda. We ask you to please limit your remarks to 3 minutes per speaker.
You want me now or later?
Yeah, if you're talking about something that's not on the agenda,
Well, you were gonna put our issue on the agenda,
then it is.
so you want me now?
No, if it's to talk about that, it's under a discussion item 8E. Anyone else with any public comment? Please come up to the front and state your name.
My name is Carl Doty, and I live down here in town in Ward 1. I'm an incoming alderman for Ward 1, and I'd like to just bring something to the attention of some issues of a current alderman that I'd like the city to look into. There was a comment posted on West River Spay Neuter Coalition stating that I was trapping and dispatching feral cats in town. And this thing has turned into a giant snowball. And I want to read a comment here, if I can, from Mr. Johnson. So they're trying to figure out who it was because everybody's leaving me anonymous. And Mr. Johnson said, Terry, his name is Carl Doty. He is just taking a vacant position on the Hill City Council. Will get sworn in the first council meeting in July. He is a firefighter and an EMT on the ambulance. Also a Cub Scout leader. I believe he is working in Nebraska full-time. It will be a little difficult for the idiot to attend council meetings. I will find his picture and get it to you or give you a link to the URL that I plan on posting. So Mr. Johnson is trying to is basically giving out my personal information over
Don't get on
social
social media
platform.
then.
And basically jeopardizing not only my career, but also the ambulance, the fire department, and the scouting program of Hill City.
Okay, Mr. Doty? All right, thank you for that information. I'd ask that we please maintain order. Any other further public comment? Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Action item 7A, approval of 2020-2021 retail on and off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine renewals. A Dollar General Store, 681 Main Street.
This is the last of our renewals. Everything is in place. The background check, the taxes have been paid. I have the application finally in hand, so it is recommended for approval.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion Alderman Jarvis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Johnson. Roll call vote, please.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yep.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Yeah.
Action item 7B, approval of sound permit, 177 Museum Drive, Gypsy Rose Studio, J.A. Barleen. Stacia?
I received this, last week. Yes, she wanted it for this last coming Saturday, and I administratively approved it for Saturday. I just need your final approval on this. She may do other things throughout the summer, but she will come to us first and just give it to us, even though it'll be, the permits for the entire year. So I recommend approval.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve Alderman Johnson, is there a second?
Second.
Second Alderman Jarvis. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
John Johnson.
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Yep.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
Action item 7C, approval of 2020-2021 retail on and off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license and renewal, 124 Main Street, This and That Bartique, Travis and Tina Kettner.
This will be a new malt beverage. They also want the renewal because they want it for June, and then the renewal starts in July. It will be a new boutique or bar, half wine bar, whatever you want to call it. Tina's actually here if you have any questions for her regarding what's going to be inside, but it's just going to be, I'm assuming,
It's just beer and wine, and then we have is a clothing store also, and then it'll be a tanning booth.
so background check, taxes, everything is taken care of and paid for. Recommend for approval.
Okay, any discussion, council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve Alderman Peterson, second Alderman Johnson. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Yep.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Action item 7D, approval of 2020 retail on-off sale wine and cider license, 124 Main Street, This and That Bartique, Travis and Tina Kettner.
This will just be it's the new wine license. It's for the calendar year of 2020, and they'll renew in November. Everything's been taken care of and recommend approval.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion Alderman Jarvis, is there a second?
Second.
Second Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please, Stacia.
Jim Peterson.
Yep.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carried. Action item 7E, canvass of municipal election results.
Thank you, Mayor. At Tuesday of last week was our municipal election. We had one race in town that was in Ward 2 for the alderman position. It was Dale Householder and John Johnson running for that seat that will become open in July. Bless you. So the election was conducted, in case anybody doesn't know, the city annually contracts with the county to operate the election. And so that election took place on Tuesday of last week. The county operates the election. We do some noticing in advance of it, but as far as the ballot printing and the actual conducting of the ballot or the votes is done by volunteers coordinated through the county. So that occurred, and we have the results in front of us in the packet. There were 77 votes for Dale Householder, 34 votes for John Johnson. So the canvassing involves essentially saying, okay, they collected 111 votes, and then the portioning of those votes is 77 for Householders, 34 for Johnson. And so the duty of canvassing is just to certify that that is the election result that occurred. In this election, however, there was a problem that arose at the very early beginning part of the election, where it happened right at the very beginning, where there were some Ward 1 residents who were given a Ward 2 ballot. And so that issue was brought to light by a resident who came up and was confused because they didn't think that they could vote in Ward 2 because they reside in Ward 1. The whole, the election group, volunteers looked at that and said, you're right, you shouldn't have that ballot. So that ballot was spoiled and essentially put away. And then the correct ballot was given to that individual. That prompted a review of all of the prior votes that were, or ballots that were given out to other city residents. So they went back on the rules and looked at all of the people that had shown up at the polling place that were residents of the city and could have potentially been given an incorrect ballot. So that number was determined not to exceed 9 ballots. Okay, so we're talking about a maximum, if they were all given incorrectly, we're talking about a total of 9 ballots. In the review, there's no way to know how those people voted or what ballot was given, because once it gets into the person, into the voter's hands, then it's on them to vote, and it would be on them to identify and tell the poll workers, or not the poll workers, but the volunteers essentially, if they had a problem with their ballot, and then that one could get spoiled and they can get a different one. To my understanding and knowledge, there was only one person that spoke up. Once they spoke up, what happened is that the election volunteers got together, reviewed what ballots they have. There was a total of, between the 2 different wards, there's 5 different ballots. Ward 2 had 3 different ballots. Ward 1 had 2 different ballots. Ward 1 had 2 different ballots. Ward 2 had 3 different ballots. There was no city election in Ward 1, so there was no city thing to vote on there. It was just districts, state information, and then the president primary. In Ward 2, there's a Republican ballot, there's a Democrat ballot, and then there's a non-political ballot, which the only thing that's on it is the city election, because these races aren't determined by Republican, Democrat. They're not party affiliated. Okay? So when you come in and vote in Ward 2, you would have been either given the Democrat ballot if you're identified with that party, or the Republican ballot if you're identified with that party. If you aren't declared and you don't want to vote on the Democrat ballot, you can just vote on the non-political ballot, and that's the only item that would have been on it. So the thought process is that up to 9 ballots were given out that could have been erroneous. Now, that could mean that all 9 were given out incorrectly, the incorrect ballot, or it could just mean that 2 were given out incorrectly. We don't know what that number is. We know that 1 was given out for sure because that person questioned it, returned it, and they got the proper one. So that one was taken care of. Once they reviewed all the ballots, made sure that everything was clear as to what the expectation was for the rest of the election, they recounted all of their remaining ballots in their stack. There's certain packages of ballots that are open for them to use. The other ones are sealed in a predetermined 100 count. And so they knew what ballots they had left in their packet. They know how many ones they gave out. And so doing the math, they could tell that all of the ballots were accounted for, as well as that spoiled ballot. So all the math works out on that. They then proceeded to call the county office and talk to their supervisor for the election, put them on notice that this had occurred, that they had come up with the solution, had corrected it, and that going forward, there is no problem, and there was no further problem with it. The county, to my understanding, because I had a dialogue with the county, they contacted the state, Secretary of State, and in that process also talked to the Attorney General's office and said that those types of things do occur. The number of votes will determine its impact on the election as far as the result of it. So the election will continue. Everything was fixed. And then we got the vote total that I described to you. Later, I had an opportunity to talk to the county myself, and they said, yes, there was an error. It was quickly fixed, and then the rest of the election was fine. They, in speaking with the state, consider the matter closed, and that the nine votes max that were affected wouldn't have affected the outcome of the race, and therefore they feel that the question is closed on their end. I did not call the state. We did not call the Attorney General. We went through the county because that's who we operate the election through. What we did, however, though, is we talked to our own city attorney about the question and got advice from him that was along the same lines, that the vote total would not alter the election, even if all the votes were taken from one candidate and given to the other. Then I was also in touch with an elections attorney who is available to us through a hotline through the South Dakota Risk Pool. And so I spoke with her about the same question, and she said, yes, unfortunately it does happen. The number of votes do not invalidate the election. There is really no recourse, even in a legal sense. There is a precedent or case law that says a lawsuit wouldn't get anywhere because it effectively, if those ballots are thrown out or given to one candidate or the other, there's not enough to overturn the election. So once all of that information was collected, Stacia and I spoke with both candidates, with Mr. Householder and Mr. Johnson individually, told them what had transpired. Both of them appeared to understand what was going on. Neither one of them at the time had any questions. And we considered the matter closed. I did receive questions from Mr. Johnson today, which I'm working on, and probably a better forum to get any questions resolved would be tonight's meeting. But I haven't had a chance to finish that because there's quite a few questions in there. So that is the gist of it. And so according to the county, they have certified what they need to certify. We have received the election numbers for the canvass, which are essentially just documenting the numbers that voted. Whether or not there's a ballot issue is, in my understanding, a separate issue from just counting what numbers did come in. And so the recommendation from staff, based upon discussion with the staff working the election, the county supervisor, 2 attorneys, is that this is an appropriate canvass to approve. So I would recommend, and I believe Stacia would agree with me, that this is an appropriate canvass and would recommend and seek approval of it.
Okay,
And I stand for any questions you might have.
thank you, Brett. Any discussion?
Yep. Do you have any written confirmation of what the county told you, the state, and also the Attorney General's office?
Okay, the written certification is what you have in front of you.
No, I mean, what, a written verification of what they told you.
Oh, as far as that they consider it closed? No, it was just it's a verbal phone call.
I would feel more comfortable having written
The
the
email,
confirmation from all of them stating that.
okay, so 2 things. In the email they sent us, Stacia, when they sent us the vote total, it might be good to print that email out, because I think they give certification on their end of the election. That would prove that they've closed it out. I can't give you certification from the state or the Attorney General's office, because I did not speak with them. So I don't have that. But the county would not have sent us numbers if there was an issue with the election. They wouldn't have asked us.
So the county does not care if there was mistakes made as far as the people getting their own ballots?
I can't speak for the county. That's a question for them. My interaction with them said that mistakes do happen. Mistakes are then investigated. Corrective action has to be taken on the fly at the election, because you still got hundreds more people coming through the door to vote, and you don't want it to be wrong for the whole election. There are 3 workers at the election that all recounted and came up with the solution to this problem. That worked at that election, communicated that to the supervisor's office, and then I was told that the county talked to the state. And so once those are identified, they fix them, and then they wait for the election results to unfold. If it's a significant enough of a problem where it would affect the outcome of the election, then I think they would say, yeah, there's a big problem here that didn't get addressed. But we're talking about 9 votes, a maximum of 9 votes. That was identified and quickly fixed and communicated through those channels. We would have not received this information that's in your packet from the county if there was a problem. They would not have asked us to canvass this and approve it.
Any other discussion?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yep, Alderman Minor, have the floor.
So when did the city become aware of the mistakes in the voting? And along Alderman Jarvis's line, why wasn't this information put in our packet so that we could review it?
Okay, good question. I don't know the time of when it was identified or when there was a problem. It was the 9th registered city voter, somebody who physically lives within the city boundaries. That's when it was identified. It was when that 9th person attempted to vote and said something that they had an incorrect ballot. They were confused. So I don't know what the time.
I was asking when the city became aware of this problem.
Sorry, you broke up.
His question is, when did the city become aware?
My
of the
question
problem?
is, when did the city become aware of this problem? How long has the city known about it?
I was made aware the next morning. I don't know. I can only speak for myself. So I was made aware of it the next morning, and immediately started the conversations that I had that I just described.
And I was notified at the time.
And
Greg
so
was.
the person that's telling us that there was only 9 ballots is the same person that gave out the wrong ballots, but we don't have a statement from that person or anybody else to know that that's what happened.
So I don't have any statements from the volunteers that worked. You're correct there. I am taking their word at what transpired, and it was verbally given to me.
And then why wasn't this in our packet so that we could have researched this question? I'm a little nervous about signing something that says it's a true abstract of the votes cast when we know there's been mistakes made.
So in my mind, my duty was to communicate potential ballot issues with the candidates first after we had a chance to investigate it. And so I did that, and I was able to do that fairly quickly with candidate Householder. And I was literally on the phone with candidate Johnson at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday. And so the story had not yet evolved to the point where I could create a narrative explaining what everything had gone on. So my goal is to create a narrative to document exactly who I talked to and when. And the other expectation I had of myself was to explain all of this to you at this meeting tonight.
So you're asking us to sign this certificate of the results of the election, knowing there were mistakes, but we have no information, documentation from the county or the state that we should sign this, other than somebody said something.
Again, we would not receive this information from the county asking us to canvass it and approve it if they had not internally certified it themselves. And I think if Stacia would go and print those emails from the supervisor, you can read those emails for yourself. We'll read them out loud of what their expectation is of this process. So there's your written, that would be the written proof if I have any.
Well, yeah, that should all be entered in the record.
So as soon as Stacia brings it back, I'll read it.
Seems like it should, okay, mistakes happen, right, whatever. But, what Bill's saying is we have to sign this. So quite frankly, you're saying it's okay, but no, why wouldn't we have Lori from the county who oversees that or whatever give us a document saying it's okay, and at the state? I think there's some legitimacy in that. And then, the mistake is, on the record, it's taken care of, and you got 4 people that are saying, hey, it's okay. Yeah, it's not gonna change the election, that's fine, but this is kind of.
It's like, it was okay to make this mistake, that's what they need to say.
The mistake is, are we making a second mistake if we don't,
Yeah, so I agree with the thought process of saying we need to document this much as we can. That's why we as staff have tried to do what we can to try to better understand what happened, why did it happen, what is the fundamental effect of it. Obviously I'm having verbal conversations with different people in order to better understand that and try to piece it all together. This is a question that, I didn't just work on it for an hour. It's consumed quite a bit of the past 5 days. And so this email from Stacia is going to be from the supervisor's office. We can read it, and you can determine if that's going to be enough to warrant your approval of it.
So, Mayor, this is Talbot Wazorek. Can I say something on a clarifying issue on this?
Absolutely, Mr. Wazorek. Please add whatever you need to.
Yeah, just from a clarifying standpoint, by signing off on the canvas, you're not certifying that everything went perfect at the election. You're basically saying this many votes were cast, and here's the report, and these numbers add up. And that's if there's going to be a question of challenging of it, really, you're not saying there was never a bad ballot. The mere fact of it is why our system works pretty well. It's not perfect, and sometimes things like this happen. And the courts have been pretty direct that the elections can't be perfect. So if there's an error, the only thing you really are concerned about is whether that error could have changed the result. And Brett's done a pretty good job here of explaining how he's followed up, that they clarified this, and the fact that the 9th person, I believe their ballot was even scratched and they were given a new one. So really it's only 8 possible, and some of them might have been from the proper ward anyway. So the math doesn't work out. It couldn't change the election. So your canvas is not certifying that it was perfect or that everybody got the right ballot. It's just that these are the votes and these are how the votes turned out. The report is on this extra issue is to make sure everybody's aware of it. that it occurred. And from the standpoint of where Brett's coming from, he did talk initially to me after he had run down all the information. In my opinion, based on the law, that the canvass is valid, that it doesn't change the outcome of the election. That doesn't mean that the losing party or a third party couldn't still challenge the election, but they'd have to do that in court and prove out that this issue. I then recommended that he call the risk pool because they have an expert on elections that will then provide analysis, I think, up to an hour without charge. He did that. Quite frankly, that lawyer happens to be in my office, has done has been involved in multiple states in different litigations on ballot issues. Her conclusion was the same. Nobody likes to see this. Nobody likes to experience it. But in the end, the canvass is not a certification that every ballot cast was perfect, just that these numbers were cast and here's what the numbers are. And here's what the result is. And then the challenge of that result then falls to individuals or candidates if they want to challenge whether that changes something happened that changed the outcome. So I want the council to understand you're not saying it's perfect, you're not saying all the ballots are right, you're just saying here's the numbers and here's what the numbers add up to, and here's the result of those numbers.
Brett, is there something that can be read?
So I'll read, I don't know if this will clear up in your minds what questions you have, but I'll read what it has and I'll pass it around. So we received 2 different emails from the county as it relates to the election. Says, the first email is, we completed the provisional ballot board today at 1 p.m. Attached are the unofficial election results for your canvass. Let me know if you have any questions, okay? So they do their own ballot board process. Don't ask me how that operates, I don't know. But that is the process in which that they're checking and double checking their own work internally to get it to that point. So when you watch the elections at home or on the internet, the first numbers, because I was watching the election on my phone primarily, the first numbers that you'll see come up on there that are listed, and I follow the state website, is all of the absentee votes. And so you saw that one, and then that was there for a while, and then finally it was updated like 9 o'clock, I think, that evening.
So
And
my
then
comment on
and
the
then-
first email means nothing to me so far.
Okay, well,
Means-
let me
yeah.
please finish. So then the election, as the election are counted, the county's gonna send that information to the state first, they're gonna post it, and that's where you see the final numbers, and then they check it and make it official, okay? So that's the process of that. So that's the first email. The second one is talking about, this was sent an hour and a few minutes after the first one. I also have this report which shows the absentee totals in case you want it. So the information in your packet is showing what information has been sent to Stacia about the election, and so it has passed their ballot board. This email does not say anything about the issue with the ballots and their investigation.
Do they know
to it.
anything about the issue with the ballots at that time? When these emails were generated?
Yes,
Okay.
they would have been contacted the prior day on election day.
Who's the main gal at the county? Isn't it Lori? Emerson?
Yeah, Lori.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she is
How
the
come we-
election supervisor.
So you've talked to her?
Correct. I talked directly to her. I
And
called her and she wasn't available. I left a message. She called me back. And then we touched base on the election.
I called around as well. Of course, it's like anything else you run across in the years of done this. It seems like you never get the same two stories for me in 2 different city or county outfits. But I tried to call Lori today. I guess she's off till Thursday. And then Cindy Muller, auditor, she's off too, but they gave me her personal email address that said she was working from home. I emailed her, but I didn't get a reply. But I talked to the Secretary of State, and I don't I don't give a damn about what the numbers were. I'm sure I want out of here just as much as some of you people want me out of here. I want to be gone, so I'd welcome Dale to be here. But, I just want to, once again, did the city screw up or did the county screw up on it? You call the Secretary of State, they don't say a whole lot because they want to put you back over, or the Attorney General don't say a lot because they want to put you back over the Attorney, the Secretary of State. And the little gal I got there today, I think somebody else called the Secretary of State too, on somebody. She went through it and she told me her opinion. She's not an attorney, but here's my opinion. But like I say, over the years, it seems like a lot of you call, you get one story, maybe Stacia calls, gets another story, I call, I get the third story. So the story I got doesn't quite jive with the stories that some of the rest of you got.
Well, like I said, I spoke directly with Lori, who was familiar with what had occurred. And she related to me that whatever investigative process they followed, that they conducted that. I don't know who their contact is with the Secretary of State's office or the Attorney General's office. I did not ask those questions. As far as pointing blame of who's to blame, ultimately it's our city election, and so I guess you can look at the city. It's a partnership with the county, so that we don't have three separate elections, because you've got a state election, you've got a county election going on, and you've got school district possibly, and you've got the city. So you've got multiple entities, and the idea is that we put all the ballot issues on one ballot rather than having all separate ballots and separate check-ins and separate polling locations to really confuse people. So I don't know specifically who to blame. It's something that occurred. I know that the county was shorthanded with volunteers. It's my understanding that they had replacement people that everybody's trained, but they move people around as they need them to show up to the poll because they need workers to do the check and balance. So I agree with what Talbot was saying is the number of votes that were given, the number of ballots that were given to the election workers, the volunteers, they checked all of those, they counted all of those, and they counted, then Lori and her staff count the number of ballots that were actually voted, the number of ballots that were spoiled, because I think there was, there was at least that one that was spoiled that got the wrong ballot, and then they check it against what remaining ballots are out there. So, I mean, they have their process. I don't have an email from Lori, and obviously she's not on the phone here tonight, to corroborate my discussion with her, so.
So it's ultimately the county's responsibility that's the end all of this election, and then they kick it up to the state, right?
So
it ends up at the state aspect of it.
Right.
So why can't we get something from Lori just saying, acknowledging the issue and saying that, in our opinion, this doesn't matter?
Sure. So two things. It is our city election. They're a contract worker for us, but they have all of the equipment and the training and whatnot to make it happen. So it makes sense for us to piggyback and work with them in the election. As far as getting a statement from Lori, I'm all for that. I have no problems with that, no qualms whatsoever. I can't speak for Lori if she's for that, or I don't know what her process is to do something like that. I did.
And she said it was okay.
That's fine.
Let's get it in writing.
That's Lori's statement. I can't speak for her in the sense of providing a written statement.
I get
That's all
that.
I'm saying.
I get that.
I think a written statement would be great. That would solve everything. And preferably from Talbot, as far as the city stance, the county, the state, and the AG office. If we could get statements from all of them, then it's okay.
I called two other attorneys who are city attorneys. Of course, that's how the attorneys make their living. They don't agree and get along. So, but the both attorneys I had talked to said you'd have another election in town.
Yeah, this is Talbot again. I don't know who would tell you that, and I don't know what the facts were represented to him, but that having dealt with election law, having our office dealt with a lot of election law, that's just not the standard, because if you use that as the standard, the difficulty you have is somebody could purposely spoil a ballot and then always make you hold a re-election if they lost. So the courts don't do that unless it can change the outcome. Now, the difficulty you guys are facing tonight is the canvass is simply the count. You have a statutory, under statutory law, you have to do your canvass in 7 days. It's not usual to get a lot of feedback from the AG or Secretary of State because you don't have direct contact with them, and so you rely on your county office who's running it to say, yeah, this is the count, this is the way it works. If the city in the future wishes to break with that, you can hold a separate elections, and there's a whole process for that. But the canvass should be certified tonight. It's the timeline to certify it, and the general consensus will be that you're not within any timeline within your 7 days going to get anything back from the AG's office, because frankly they're so far behind because they've been out of the office so long, they're barely treading water.
So is that 7 business days, 7 calendar days?
That's 7 days.
So calendar days.
So
Yeah, I don't know why we couldn't get, the county, I don't know. I think we could have that tomorrow, couldn't we?
but you'd have to schedule a special meeting, and I'm not sure you can make it 24 hours, but
According to state statute, we must post a special meeting 24 hours prior to the meeting. So we wouldn't have the opportunity to do that to support our open meeting laws.
We could schedule it for 9 o'clock tomorrow night.
So, Mayor?
Yes. Alderman Minor, is that you?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Just thinking here, how is this all fair to Mr. Householder, Mr. Johnson, the residents of Ward 2? I have a real difficulty signing a document that says I'm certifying the results of this vote. I understand mistakes can be made, but by the same token, I don't sign documents that say this is a true representation of the vote. Well, it wasn't a true representation of the vote of the eligible voters of Ward 2. And so I respectfully disagree with Mr. Wyzorek, and I want to see some documentation from some election official that's accountable for this before I'll sign it.
Was the meeting have to be scheduled for 9:30? Why can't it be set for 9:30, 10?
So in this canvas certificate that's in your packet, it says that you're certifying that this is a true abstract of the votes cast in your jurisdiction of Hill City, South Dakota. So it is identifying that, and this is what I believe Talbot is saying, is that the votes that were cast, whether they're on the right ballot or the wrong ballot, these are the votes that were collected at that precinct and counted, and then forwarded back to us. I mean, we don't have this information that's in your packet until Lori sends it to us. We don't have access to
Well,
this.
how could it be true? I could have gotten 9 more votes than I really got if people in Ward 1 had happened to vote for me.
Mhm.
So that isn't a true account of what happened.
They're just accounting the votes that were collected. They have a total of how many votes they physically had in their possession. They have a count of how many ballots had a cast vote on it, whether, doesn't matter for what candidate, and they have a stack of spoiled ballots. And all of that added together matches up with what they started with. So I don't know who those people voted for. Nobody does. That's the
Apparently
point of
only
the
one
process.
spoiled ballot.
There's only one spoiled ballot involved with this question.
So
I don't know if there's other ones.
But there could be.
Okay.
No, in regards to this particular election, Ward 2, there's one spoiled ballot and several others that could be wrong, potentially.
Up to
No.
eight.
No.
At least
Okay,
nine.
I can't speak to any of the county election stuff or the state election stuff, all those other ballots that have other races on it. The person that was trying to vote lives in Ward 1. They received a Ward 2 ballot. They started to vote. They got towards the end, because that's where that question is asked on the ballot, is at the end. And they thought, oh, I have a ballot, I can't vote for this position, it's in Ward 2. They came to the election table and said, I don't think this is the right ballot. They investigated, sure enough, it's not the right ballot. Let me finish. They spoiled that ballot.
So one spoiled.
They spoiled that ballot related to the city election. There are no more spoiled ballot after that for the city question. That's why it's limited at 9 ballots, up to 9 ballots could have been given out incorrectly. After that, they fixed the process, they understand who gets what ballot, and the re-election proceeded forward. So, of those 9, up to 9 ballots, for all I know, 5 of them were given to the correct person. It was the right ballot given to the right person. I can't assume that, though. It's worst case scenario that up to 9 ballots were given erroneously. And that 9th one was fixed with that voter standing in front of them. And then nothing beyond that would have been affected. They would have had the correct
So I'll go
ballot.
back to what I said. I'm talking about Ward number 2, and you have one spoiled ballot for sure. And you have a potential of 8 others then.
That would be
Potential.
That would be a
And that's what we're faced with
Yeah,
for
that
signing
would-
something that says this is
yeah,
true.
that is a fair
This is-
statement.
Okay, that's all I was trying to say.
Yeah, but the way you said it,
Well, I said it the same way. I said
No.
9, as
The-
potential of 9.
the
Anyway,
way-
it doesn't
the-
matter.
The way I
You've
understood it is
reiterated
that you were
5
talking
times.
about valid ballots above and beyond 9. There
No,
weren't.
I get that.
I'm just trying to be clear.
Yeah, thanks, Brett.
Okay, the previous day before the 9th, do you know how many people were from Ward 1 and Ward 2?
Say that again, Steve.
The previous 8 before the spoiled ballot, number 9, do you know how many people were from Ward 1 and how many were from Ward 2?
I do not. I was told that the 9th voter who lives within the city brought that ballot up and said, hey, there's a problem. So I don't know the other 8. I
The
don't
previous
know.
8 could have been from Ward 2.
Yep.
Or they could have been
And they
from
could have
Ward
got the
1.
right ballot, or they
Yeah.
could have left it blank, you know,
Correct.
all of that.
Correct,
The problem is you don't know.
correct.
And the problem is, so, anyway, I just wish somebody could have thought to get a statement from somebody in writing, so we don't have this dilemma, and we say, hey,
Sure.
you know, because
Yeah.
quite frankly, I really don't care what you say. You know, verbally, you've talked to somebody, get it in writing so that I don't have to sign my signature to something that says for the constituents. I don't think we're looking to, I'm not looking to have a re-election, are you? Are you?
Hell no, I'm gone now.
Yeah. I-
So the point is, you know, I mean,
Yeah. I agree with that statement, that a statement from Lori would be great. I'm not debating that at all.
It's not a surprise, everything else is screwed up.
so, you say you've been working on it for a while? I mean, Lori would have been,
Since when?
Talbot, whatever. You know, being up here, I've heard all kinds of different things that, you know, you have to sift through and understand for yourself. And this is kind of another case, but anyway, I'd like to see something in writing that can justify us signing this. And your statement is that we're just signing that there's a total number of numbers. It's a true abstract. Well, so to me, it sort of says, you know, how true is that if there's a potential error? It's great that you caught it when you caught it, so you can identify the numbers that were there, so we can logically look at it and say it's not going to affect the election. But these people do these elections and should know the law inside and out. I don't, you know. And again, no offense to Talbot, but I've been told all kinds of stuff by attorneys, the city attorney in particular, and I don't necessarily have to agree with it or find out that I should agree with it or that I disagree or I agree. I don't know, people, anyway, it's frustrating because this should be just a simple deal.
Mayor?
Yes, Alderman Minor?
If we don't have some kind of statement from an election official, it looks like we're trying to sweep this under the rug and hide what happened with no accountability. I think it sets a bad precedent.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, Alderman Minor. I think the fact that it was put out on the table is showing that there's transparency, that's the desired result here, and it's being shown. Again, as far as a statement from whatever election official, I don't know. All I can tell you is I'm looking right here at a situation where you have all the facts that we do, all of the investigation that was done. The city has 7 days to certify that election. I'd like to understand what the alderman would like to do in order to accommodate the regulation.
Thing is, your name ain't on the certificate. It's us. We're the ones signed it. True?
I don't know that I'm required to sign it,
Did you
but
read it? It was in the packet. Only one's on there is Steve.
I'm not saying what's in the packet, but by law, I don't know if I'm required or have the ability to sign
There's what
a
we got.
canvas.
Read what we got. Your name ain't on it.
Talbot, could you advise if the mayor, in effect, can sign the canvas, which I'd be more than happy to do?
Yeah, I see the draft has the 4 of them assigning as being appointed. It's, yeah, so generally, I mean, you can certainly sign also, Mayor. I don't see anything wrong with that. If there's been a formal appointment as board canvassers, they're the 4 officials that are signing it. Generally, the way I see canvases approved is that you vote as a body for the approval. But I haven't looked to see how the appointment was done or how the rules set the canvassers.
Okay, thank you. So any recommendations? I'm going to ask for a motion then if there's no further discussion.
Well, I already gave a recommendation.
That's what I thought.
I think Bill is on the record of giving a recommendation as well.
So I'm asking for a motion then.
Mayor, this is Talbot, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be helpful if the majority of the council wishes to have some kind of direction from the county that either be put in a motion and set forth what information they're looking for, because I mean, if the question is, do we need to hold another election, or is that the question, or is the question that by canvassing do we certify that there were no mistakes made in the election? That's a different question, or maybe there was both questions. And if a motion is made not to adopt the canvass today and set up another meeting, that should be part of the motion to reschedule to get the canvass done tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, if it can get posted here in the next hour and a half to wherever you guys post.
Bill, do you have a comment? With regards to a motion?
I think that we need some kind of documentation from the county explaining the error, documenting that there's no way it was more than 8 or 9 or whatever, and that it did not affect the election, so that we have all the proper documents. It would seem to me if we sign something as a governing body and it's not true, that we're putting ourselves and the city in legal jeopardy. So I think the county who ran the election should be held accountable and provide the city the documentation that makes all of us comfortable signing. That's my thought.
And also, I think the county should state that the Board of Canvassers are not held responsible for the mistakes that was made, and that they, I mean, they're not gonna be, if we sign this, once they give their okay, that we're not held liable in any way for signing it.
All right, I'll take a stab at a motion, since, if I, to follow that line, I'd make a motion that we get a written document from the county election official stating they understand the issue. The issue has been taken in consideration, and they still provided us with a canvas that they're allowing us, that by us signing it, it doesn't exempt or that we all realize that there was an issue that happened. It doesn't change the outcome, and they're basically instructing us that it'd be we wouldn't be violating anything to sign it as the canvassing board. And I think if we had that, Steve, I don't think we need them to say that. I mean, they'd be on record saying that, you know, that we could sign it.
Sure.
That would take care of that, whatever liability
The
you think.
liability.
Huh?
The liability.
And then have a quick meeting tomorrow night or something. If we can get that, and get it in writing, so it goes with this and it's documented. I think this could have been, yeah, anyway, lesson learned, I guess.
So the motion includes all of that, but what is the basis of the motion? Is it to table the item to tomorrow? Is it to?
That's a good question. I guess that would be a table it to tomorrow to get the answer from the county, going on record saying that it would be appropriate for a canvassing board to certify this election.
Can everybody be here tomorrow?
Can we do it by?
Got more to do besides city stuff.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That's a draft motion. I'm throwing it out there. Whatever.
So a motion on the floor to table this to another meeting, which,
I would make it. Would you make it?
I'll make it.
Bill, would you be able to make it? And can we call in?
Yes,
It seems to be the thing these days.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Okay, so Alderman Peterson, motion on the floor to table till to tomorrow and requesting the written documentation as he had previously stated. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Alderman Jarvis. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so the highlights of that would be, they understand the issue as explained, they lay out what the issue was in this written document. They state to us that as a canvassing board, they understand the issue, that it would be appropriate for us to certify this election based on the issue and everything else. And so that's in the email, or the letter, the written document.
And I would like to see the letter before we get here tomorrow night.
So,
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please, Stacia.
John Johnson,
Abstain.
Steve Jarvis,
Yes.
Jim Peterson,
yes.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
Motion carried, 3 yeses and 1 abstention. All right, moving on to action item, discussion items. Discussion item 8A, Pennington County Sheriff's Report.
Good evening, Doug Kimball, Pennington County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Harkins was going to go by phone, but his access code was not working, so he called me.
Okay.
Before I get to some other business, have you looked at the logs? Any questions? Arguments, complaints?
Nope. Anyone? Nope, it appears that we are good. Thank you very much for your service.
And Sergeant Harkins will be bringing, when kind of everything's quelled down,
Okay.
both our new deputies, Deputy Southern and Deputy Riley. I've already welcomed them here and trying to get them off on the right foot, and they're good additions to the town.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Dick.
Oh,
Can I talk to you out there for a real quick second? Excuse myself for a minute.
Okay, item 8B, Hill City Chamber Director Report. Who is here in person today?
Good evening, everyone. Janet from the Chamber. Happy to be here. Happy to see you all in person. First, I'd like to thank our mayor for her support in enrollment and assistance with preparing for any potential impact on our community health. It's great to have your support, and I'm looking forward to communicating with you a little bit more about that. I also want to recognize and thank Brett and Travis in our Public Works Department for assisting in making the grounds so very nice at the Visitor Information Center. I've provided you all your reports, and I know you all have a lot to review and read. The good news is that visitors are traveling and spending time in Hill City. Grateful to see so many nice people in town. Very busy this weekend, very busy over the Memorial Day holiday. Talking with a number of our chamber members, we're sort of in resuming a recovery mode, as one of them put it this afternoon. Right now, we're actually getting ready to approach all of our lodging partners to find out what their status is for the 3rd and 4th of July Independence Holiday rally going forward. Grateful to hear that many of them are already full, approaching capacity, so that is good news. And our visitors are saying they're changing their comments from "we're coming next year" to "we're coming in early August." So we're hearing everything from late July, early August into the fall. All right. Next up, people are still searching for some of the same things. They want to know where they can stay. They want to know about sites and attractions, what they can do while they get here, or when they get here. They want to know where they can eat and have a nice dining experience. And you can see that list under the May categories. As far as our short-term focus, I'm excited to tell you that we have hired one new additional VIC seasonal staff person to assist us and support us now. We hired her today and she started her first day. Her name is Cindy Dusing. We're now going forward with our budget prep for 2021, so thanks Stacia for the information there. Membership visits and preparing for our membership campaign. We've extended our membership campaign to give our members a little bit of support and assist their cash flow. So we've given them a grace period to start 1 month later than we typically do for our membership. We're now looking at planning and preparing for Independence Day holiday, July 3rd and 4th, rally. So that's our short-term focus. Also, in my notes, you might have seen that we've wanted to get at least 3 feature stories. We've already gotten one Saturday night, KNBN, Dominique from News Center 1 came, did a nice feature on the train. We also, this morning, I got a nice message from a pitch and a release. All 3 of these stories have come from a release I sent out. Blake Joseph with KOTA KEBN, Good Morning Black Hills, is going to be doing a couple of features on Hill City, one on the train, one on Turtletown. So that's exciting news. Right now, our numbers for the VIC, typically, depending on what we're looking at for a category, they're anywhere from 30 to 50% in that realm. Decrease from where we've been in the past. We're about 42% down for the month to date. So we've had about 170 people come into the Visitor Information Center. The exciting news is, and I'm happy to say our idea was copied and enjoyed by one of our other chamber sister friends. We put together some grab and go packets. Those have been very popular. We've gone through about 160 some of those to date. And oddly enough, we're a little surprised we haven't gotten more calls about fireworks. But that is surprising to us. But we've only had 2, believe it or not, that I have taken. So, and that Jeannie reports the same. The good news is our sales tax, our municipal sales tax, again, reporting going upward trend, 12.79% up from the previous month. So we're in a unique position. So that's good news for us. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to share at a high level from the report. Do you have any other information or questions?
Did you get the email I sent you?
I did.
Well, I sent both addresses. I see later I screwed up and sent it to the Prevailers.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate that, John. Thank you so much.
I forgot to call you.
No worries. I got it. I saw it right away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you
Thank
for all
you.
your efforts.
My pleasure, and yours too.
Okay, discussion item 8C, Hill City Public Works Director's Report.
Travis is not going to make it. He is still dealing with the water issues up at Bull Run.
Okay. So I would ask that the council please take a look at the reports that he submitted, and if you have any questions, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer them for you offline. All right, let's move on into action item 8D, Raleigh Main Street closure. So this is an item that I had asked to be put on the agenda today. Every year, the council is presented with the question or with the action that needs to happen in order to close Main Street for the rally. This year, the official rally in Sturgis, the decision will be made on that on the 15th of June. So in order to allow us enough time to be able to react and do what we have to, get all of our permits in or whatever we have to, we will be looking to have that discussion on, or have it potentially as an action item on our next meeting as it comes to street closure. I myself have gone out and I'm just trying to understand what people have to say. So I've been canvassing some businesses, some individuals relative to the Raleigh Street closure. I would recommend that the council do the same thing as well and weigh that into your decision thought process as it comes time to approve any closure that we do or do not have. So that is why I put it on there. I put it on there as a discussion item intentionally to allow the council to ask any questions or if there's anyone from the audience. So if the council doesn't have any questions, if there's anyone of the public that would like to come up and comment, please do so. Let us know your name and we'll have it for the record.
Will it be the same closure in the past years? per se?
So if we do a closure this year for the rally, the only noticeable difference will be that new mid-block crossing on Main Street that goes between the Bump and Buffalo and kind of the Mangy Moose, that little crosswalk area. We're gonna have to delineate that a certain way so we make sure that no bikes are gonna park in that space. Because it, you know, the curb comes out and pinches down traffic, so we can't have any center line parking. I think with the discussion with Sturgis and whether or not they're gonna conduct the rally, the mayor and I sat in on a teleconference
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was after the last council meeting. And they were doing outreach to the different communities to see what other communities thought about the potential for canceling the official rally, as far as the city is concerned, and the impacts of that, of canceling it or continuing it with some modifications. Obviously, social distancing is a big term that we've come to understand and know a lot about here in the past 3 months. And so, you know, with a rally and with that many people coming, and because it's a big year for the rally, you know, what do they take into account as far as crowds gathering and that socially distancing piece of it? So there's a lot of territory we can cover with the closure. The first question is whether or not you want to do it, and it's a discussion item tonight, so it's really a brainstorming session. If that answer is yes, how would it look? I know we need to delineate that crosswalk. The other question is, do we need to factor in our decision of closure with socially distancing in mind? Do we just not do the center line parking and we just leave it to the curb itself and allow bikes to park there, so it would still be bikes only, but you just do it on the curb, not the center line? You know, we can modify and tweak it. We just wanted to start that conversation now because we need a little bit of time to react to what the expectation is. If we need to order different signs, different barricades, those types of things of where we're headed. So we really needed to start this conversation up and see where we're headed. So ideally, at best case scenario, it's the normal rally with just the crosswalk taking into account. The other side of it is that if the rally is closed or canceled by Sturgis, so to speak, and we feel that we don't want to close the Main Street at all, then it would just stay as it is today. So there's a pretty big spectrum there of what we can do. Wherever we land, we can accomplish it.
So Brad, I did have some folks ask questions as I started to talk to people in the community. And one thing that they note is when we close Main Street, we basically have our central business district closed. And then also the street all the way in front of the school is closed till the end. And while there's generally a lot of traffic that's on Main Street, there's really no parking that occurs at that. I mean, I have seen it where it's gotten some traffic, but it dies down quite quickly. So is there a reason why we have to close those both blocks?
So the overall closure starts at essentially on Deerfield Road on the north end, and then it goes all the way down to the signalized intersection south of Helio there. And you need to do that because you need to warn people what's coming up. Now, the closure is essentially saying Main Street's open to motorcycles only, so it's hard to communicate a message that says bikes only, but there still is some car parking available on Main Street. And I think that's what you might be talking about south of Oak Street. So you've got Central Hills Real Estate on that corner, and then the middle school is right across the street. Those blocks south of Oak Street down to that signalized intersection historically have not been used for any parking during a rally. Bikes don't park there very often unless we're really busy, which is a good thing. But you are very hard pressed to find a car parking there, even though it would be permissible. I think the design is such that we have that flexibility to allow cars in there. The challenge is communicating that fact to the general public of saying, okay, I'm just showing up. It's saying motorcycles only on Main Street. If I'm in a car, I'm not going on Main, I'm going around. And therefore, you're missing out on an opportunity there. How could we sign it to reflect that both can be done? That's tough, because you're sending kind of a mixed message of saying, well, on one hand, it's closed to motorcycles only, but there are some available automobile spaces if you check it out. But to effectively do that closure, you've got to start it at that signalized intersection and at Deerfield. That area south of Oak is underutilized, period. It's empty during the night.
So that, when that was originally created, it was an accordion end, and you can't effectively get cars in there and out of there if they're not, if it's, you know, if there's a bunch of bikes in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, so you could turn by the school if they got past that and get out.
Mm-hmm.
One thing you could do is tell people that work on Main Street to have them park down there and free up parking elsewhere that those employees are taking on the side streets and that kind of thing. And that would be an effective way to use that space.
Correct.
And free up more parking, and then instead of, you know, and have people walk a couple blocks. Whether that could be a reality, you know.
Yeah, I agree completely with that.
Jim has his business down there, and the nightly rentals, like people be able to drive up to them.
It's never been an issue in the past, and
Okay.
people do park down there more than I would say you'd think. And the bike traffic does come down when it fills in. Not, you know, if there's 14 days, maybe there's 6 days that you know it's so that was all designed to be an accordion type end to fill in, but there's definitely more walk-by traffic that we're seeing through there, and just in general, but you know, that would be a way to, you know, hey, here's some employee parking down here.
And it would be great, I agree with the employee parking, it would be great too to have them park in that public lot south of the high school. That one is underutilized as well. And so that whole, what is it, 2.5 blocks all the way to the light, 2 blocks, whatever it is. I'm just saying it's very underutilized. There are cars that park there, there are some bikes that park there.
You could probably get some volunteers to, you know, be, you know, whether they have a golf cart or a deal to, you know, somebody could call and say, hey, can I catch a ride down or whatever to get them to their, to help them do that more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be a pretty easy thing to do, but,
Okay.
I mean, that, like I said, would free up a
So
lot of the parking.
on June, let's see, June 15th, it's next Monday, obviously not tonight. June 15th is next Monday, and the Sturgis City Council has that on their agenda of what they're gonna do with the rally. I know that they have concerns about public health. They obviously have concerns about, you know, part of this whole COVID-19 started out with health reasons, but they quickly turned into economic reasons, both commercially and personally for people. And so that is going to factor into everything. And so I think if you see the rally move forward, you are gonna see a modification up in Sturgis that you haven't seen before inherently. I don't know what that will be, they haven't communicated that. I know that they are trying to do the basic preparatory stuff that they can in order to react to whatever that decision is. And so we'll have to see, we'll know on Monday of next week. And then we can react to that of what we feel is appropriate for Hill City to do. You know, maybe they cancel it, but we still continue to close Main Street. I don't know, I think the motorcyclists will.
Buffalo Chip
will-
planned on doing it.
Yeah, I think the motorcyclists will still come. And whether or not it's an official rally or not, because this is people's annual vacation spot. And so we will have to see, we'll know more next week. So again, we're looking for any guidance or questions, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I'm not in favor of changing it, because they're gonna come and they're gonna do the same thing they've been doing all these, you know, and so if you're not ready for it, it's just gonna be a cluster. And, you know, people just, if they're worried about COVID, then wear your mask.
Okay, any other discussion on this item?
So Mayor?
Hang on a second, Bill, we have someone from the audience, and then I'll give you the floor.
Hi, Tana Nichols, Mangy Moose. 25-year Main Street business and avid motorcycle enthusiast. You're right, they're coming anyway. And I honestly think the same thing. We could get a lot more people to stop in their vehicles if we had better signage. You know, if there's just an arrow here where they have to go up the bypass, and then serious vehicle parking here signs wherever they can go. I mean, we get a lot more people to stop in their cars. They tell me that every year. So I'm just saying, if they wanna worry about the social distancing, we just start a peaceful protest.
Where are you at on the street closure, Tana?
Exactly what it was, except for his, that
Just Center
one.
Park.
Yeah. It works.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Alderman Minor, you have the floor.
Last year, I actually went downtown at 7 o'clock, well, mid-afternoon and at 7 o'clock, starting the weekend before the rally. And I counted vehicles, I counted bikes, I counted number of open parking spaces. So I have all the data clear through the rally. The weekend before the rally, on a Saturday, we had 2 empty spots, not including handicap parking, from the school all the way down to Poplar Street, all the way down to the Exxon station. There were only 2 empty parking spots on Main Street. You fast forward through the rest of the week, we had 26 parking spots, 22, 25 open ones. When we closed the street on Friday for rally, when I went down the street at 7 o'clock, we had 57 open parking spots on Friday. Saturday, 58. Sunday, we had 42 open spots. Monday, 51. And I can read them all off, but on the Saturday of rally, we had 72 open parking spots. And then Sunday, we opened it back up to traffic again at 6:30 p.m., I guess. And we had 43 open parking spots. But it's pretty apparent that, yes, Main Street is very busy 2, 3 o'clock, but by 6 or 7 o'clock, and there were 101 parking spots, not including handicap, between Poplar and the Exxon. And so during the rally at 7 o'clock in the evening, which is prime supper shopping time, over half our parking spaces were open. So it's pretty telling.
That's very good information, Bill. So, I think, how to utilize that reallocation of spots.
Mm-hmm.
Because the closure, inherently is gonna have its issue with there's no way really to mix it.
Right, there's no way to.
It'd be tough to pull barricades back and forth.
We've got another public comment?
Did you call me?
Oh, no, Victor first, huh? And then we'll get you after. Whoever wants to go first.
I just wanted to tell Bill he's right. You know, Hill City bikers, or that come to Hill City, they're usually off to their campgrounds and whatnot. I have the only really late night business down there. I mean, that's late night. And the businesses on that side of that block and the businesses on that side of the block, all those parking spaces could be open. Even one side, if they're in the middle and the side and the one side, because they aren't here at night normally. That very first weekend, I think it has to stay the same, but after that, Bill's absolutely right. At night, it shuts down.
Thank you, Tanner.
Vic Alexander. when Bill's right, I mean, there's no doubt about that, it's like Tana said, that's underutilized in the evening. And I don't know what it's gonna be during this COVID year in the motels, you know, we don't know what it's gonna be from day to day, but if it was the 80th, and although the motel rooms were pre-booked back in February, March, quote unquote, by like the old days, and everything was used up, whether it's utilized or not, there's nobody driving cars around anyway. And the reason is because all the campgrounds and all the motels are all used up by rally goers.
Right.
And there's no mom and dad and 2.3 kids driving around looking for a parking place in front of the Métis Mousset.
Right. And
You know, so it's not a matter of if, just because they're open, if we let people in there, there're gonna be people there, cause usually there aren't. Last year and 3 years ago and 4 years ago were years where the mom and dad and 2.3 kids did mix in quite a bit, and the reason is because it was slow rally years. So I don't know what this year's, I just tossed it out for the information, you know, the first, you're talking about rallies, I gotta think about the first rally I did, I was 14 working at a gas station in Keystone, and that was the year, I think it was 68, I think, and it was the year that it went over, everybody was gathering up watching, because they were signing spiral notebooks in Sturgis, and it was gonna go over 10,000. So, just a perspective on where the rally has been in Central Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Anybody else? Okay, so as I said, we will see this come through as an action item and be able to have some additional conversations. It's good to get out and hear what people have to say, and potentially we can come up with either changes or leaving it, but we will need a solution on this, and it will be an upcoming action item. The last discussion item we have is street condition assessment. So last week, we had some of our local residents come up and talk about their street and the paving on their street. And I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly that it's disappointing not to see any type of plans or how are we gonna handle this. And it's not just with streets, it's in other areas and things that we've been talking about, but streets in particular. So ultimately, it's the Common Council that are the body that's responsible for the prioritization of work and then the authorization of the money that needs to be expended for it. So in my mind, the council that needs to make the decision on the prioritization needs to be well informed and have good information relative to what they're looking at and how they can make that decision. So when we talk about streets, and when I look at it holistically. It's not just what we don't have, but it's what we do have as well. So are there streets in Hill City that are within our city limits but are not owned by the city, and why? What kind of condition are they in? What do our streets look like nowadays? We can have streets that are already paved that are in major amounts of disrepair. We can also have a situation where there's streets where they are paved, and if we don't do something really quick to start taking care of them, they'll disintegrate on us and we'll be in the same situation. So one of the things that I had talked about that I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that was happening was a street condition assessment, which is basically taking a look at every street that we have in Hill City, indicating what it's made out of, what kind of condition it's in, and all of those factors. Brett has been working with Kale on this, so we have something that would be available for the council to review, and the due date to have that assessment is July 10th, here for us to look at City Hall. So that document will then be passed on to the incoming city council. We'll have a meeting on the 13th, and I don't know if it will be an agenda item to cover at that point, but it's definitely something that is going to go into the hands of the incoming city council so they can have additional discussions relative to priority and where and when things fit. But going further than that, not just priority and where and when things fit, but what is our ultimate plan? So if we have this information, what is our roadmap in order to address what we need to? And I'd like to see a 5 and 10 year street plan. What is our plan in the next 5 years? And once we know that, we need to be cognizant and aware of how we then take in those funds and those things are allocated to make it happen. So it isn't just a piece of paper that sits on a shelf somewhere, it's something that we actually take a look at. And there's ways that we are going to ensure on this side that is visited, and it will be regular reviews of the information that we had. So things will change a little bit. But in order to get us going on something, to make sure that we have it, so you can come and say, well, you know what? It's reasonable to me expect that in 2 years my streets are gonna be paved. But then the onus is on the council to continue to have those discussions to make sure we set ourselves up financially, or we know the means by which we can have the money set aside in order to have that done. So I wanted to put that out on the table. Brett, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add.
I will only add that, Mayor, you're correct. The deadline for this assessment report of our roads is due on my desk July 10th in advance of those budget discussions, so that we can include those into the conversation for the next budget cycle. Cale McNabo, who is our city engineer, has access to the same database program that Rapid City uses to conduct the same information. And so we're able to piggyback on that software and input all of this information and capture it. And it will really give us a readout of what we've got, the exact amount of streets, linear foot or miles, however you want to look at it. The road conditions of it all will get plugged into it. And then based upon that report, we will come back as staff of saying, okay, here's the roads that need maintenance. Here's the costs for those. Here's ones for potential paving. Here's the cost for those. And essentially a starting point of that discussion of what streets should have prioritization, whether it's repair or new paving. And so it'll better focus that discussion for us so that we can make discussion or decisions going forward for the budget. So that's about all I had.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and open it up for questions, council. I know that some folks in the audience had wanted to comment, so you can come on up.
Ed Sunby, 369 Deegan Drive. I heard this same talk 5 years ago. About 3 years ago, we were on the priority list right at the top. And we're still where we are. You drove around to our place, I presume. Would that be acceptable to you if you lived there?
Quite honestly, your street is in much better condition than mine is right now, so.
Would that be acceptable to you?
If I bought a house and it was there and I knew it, I mean, at this point, I have holes. So I'm waiting until we can get the holes fixed.
How much traffic is on your street?
There's several houses that are up
How
there,
many?
so I can't, offhand, I can't.
Okay, we got 27. Plus we got that much more traffic of people up and down there. We have a daycare up there, creates a lot of traffic. Nothing against the daycare, so don't take that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, they came to my place, they trenched into my place, which you saw, which is now full of gravel again. Should that be acceptable to me? I try to keep a very neat place, as many people do. It's my understanding, I've been in business for years. Paying interest is much cheaper than paying for inflation. Your sidewalk project should tell you that. Brett took a little notice from what I told you a year or two ago. You didn't even know how payment was made. Now you're telling people diesel fuel is so cheap, that's a big part of payment. Which is true. So, 5 years ago, now we're still at the same place, you're saying in another 5 years, maybe 10? What kind of vision do we have? How do we bring people to Hill City? This lady here talks about tourism, people coming, they want to come. You have somebody, Miss Shade, who doesn't want to be known as a tourist town. I would be proud to be a tourist town. That's what Hill City is. The more people, you got a development started up there. We need to bring people in. I've been coming to Hill City for, I know it's been 30 years. I finally bought property here. What improvements have I seen? Or what improvements can you tell me? When I see empty spots, that worries me. So what was your assessment? You come up the street.
So as far as assessment goes, I want somebody professionally to tell me things. I'll tell you right now, what I saw on your road is I saw driveways that are crowned incorrectly that are causing water to go in places that they shouldn't be.
Driveways? You're talking driveways?
Could I finish, please?
Yep.
I saw the road that really should potentially be tilted one way, and it isn't. But if we're gonna do a project, we're gonna do it right. We're not just gonna slap some blacktop over a base coat and call it a day. We'll need curb and gutters, because if we do that, you're only gonna make the problem worse. And then you'll be fixing a problem that you created by not doing things the correct way.
And I totally agree. We're sending good money after bad right now. The storm drains are all on that side of the street, you noticed.
Mm-hmm.
All the water is running on this side of the street. We're held hostage. So you're right, let's do it right.
Yep.
Let's
And
do it.
That's why we need the information in order for the council to make the decision that they need.
Brett has told us time and time again, he's got the numbers.
So,
He's had the engineer, he's had the draftsman, the architect.
So, Mr. Sunby, Brett is not the person who makes decisions on priority of work to be done in the city or the spending of the funds. The spending of the money,
That wasn't my point.
I'm explaining to
My point
you.
was, he told us that he has been through all that.
As far as I know, there is not a formal project that has any information in it, nor do I have a priority from a council that says that this is the next thing that we need to work on.
So
So
where's
that's
your
what I
vision
need.
lie?
Well, that's what I just told you. A street assessment to be done, to have a plan that's created and make sure that we stay on top of it. It doesn't become one of those plans where you're told something, doesn't become a sidewalk. Okay, it doesn't take that long, but in order to do that, you have to have organization and things have to be put on the plate. So this is the step to get us in that direction.
So the last 5 years, we've had no,
I can't speak for the last 5 years. I haven't been in this position for the last 5 years.
okay, for the last 2 years, what have we
For the
done?
last year, I've been in this position, and this
For
is
the
what
last year.
For the last year, we've done a lot of work. We've had other projects that have been partially started or not started that are going. So we're working on getting things going in the right direction. And this is a big step in getting us where we need to be with our streets.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Anybody else? Okay, with no further comment, let's go ahead and close the discussion items and move into report items. So Common Council, Alderman Minor.
See you, Leroy, Ed.
See you guys.
Bye.
No report.
No report. Alderman Peterson?
No. No.
Alderman Johnson?
Nope.
Alderman Jarvis?
No.
Okay,
Bye.
I'll move on to mayor report out. We did not have a P&Z meeting, so there was nothing that had occurred. And I just want to bring everybody up. We are still continuing to watch COVID numbers and have regular discussions and conversations. It has been 2 weeks since we have experienced our Memorial Weekend. And at this point, there is very little activity that I'm seeing in the Custer area. We had one case that cropped up. So I'm hopeful that that's a sign of how we will move forward, but we're continuing to monitor that. That's all I had at this point, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brett for some quick updates.
One quick item that's not on your agenda, it's the Bull Run subdivision. They're connecting that water line, that brand new water line they're putting in. They're connecting it to our existing infrastructure water line. So they had to disrupt water service over on Quinn. Is it Quinn and Let's Drive? that work was expected to start today at 1 o'clock. It didn't start until about 1:45. It was expected to take about 3 hours to get the work done. It's taking longer than what it expected because they ran into some hype they didn't expect. And so that should have been cleared up. I don't have any texts or anything from Travis, but, oh, you snuck in.
He did sneak in.
Is it?
Regarding that, yeah, it's all done, it's
All
hooked
done.
up, water's back on.
Okay.
Perfect.
Just did the water main and the sewer that was there was the same level, so they had to hand dig and.
Perfect, okay, so that's squared away, so another step of the Bull Run subdivision is moving forward. The water reservoir project, I told you last week that, or last meeting, that the crossing is in place with the railroad. Cale continues to address questions that are asked of him by rural development, so we're still working on that piece of it. I don't have any other updates beyond that. The Major Lake Bridge project, I do have updates. I just received on Friday the report and the recommendation from the Forest Service. If anybody's interested in looking at it, I think it's about 44 pages long, with an email that's about a page long, and essentially, based on the results of the pedestrian survey and the available Major Lake Dam documentation, the investigators recommended that no finding of an adverse effect for the project. They were worried about the slope of the dam and the spillway, as the dam and the spillway are eligible for historic status. So even because they're on the eligible list, they are treated separately and carefully. Essentially, this is clearing the way for work to be done, but with the recommendation that if there's any evidence of buried cultural sites be found, and that adequate protection is taken to preserve the dam itself and just correct some of the concrete and spillway issues, that if we run into some of those things, we stop work and figure out what's going on, and that we don't disturb the dam, that they are recommending that we have permission to go forward. So I'm following up with this to make sure it gets to the next desk that it needs to hit. And so once all these approvals are in place, the next thing that we will be discussing is going out to bid. And what that timeline looks like for the bid letting process and when construction would start. So that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, with no further business, meeting adjourned.